Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sasquatch Theory. In this video we have Gregory, and he wanted to share his Bigfoot encounter that happened when he was driving in Georgia through the Fort Stewart military base. I have heard of a lot of cryptid reports near military installations, but it's difficult to say if there is a connection just because a lot of military bases are surrounded by a lot of national forest. Here in Missouri we have Fort Leonard Wood, and it's an army base by the Big Piney River. It's surrounded by the Mark Twain National Forest, and there's a lot of Bigfoot reports in the area. I wonder if anyone out there listening has had an encounter with a Bigfoot creature near Fort Stewart, or possibly knows somebody who has in the past. If you have had a Bigfoot encounter anywhere in the world and would like to be a guest on the show to discuss your encounters and experiences with me, I would be glad to have you on sometime. I hope all the listeners have been doing well, and I really appreciate everyone for listening to the channel. I am really hoping for another in-person interview, and things have been kind of slow lately with the channel, so I hope that happens soon, and I really enjoy doing in-person interviews, and I feel like that is my calling. If we don't get anyone soon, we will just have to go camping in some of my past research areas and just hope that we can get something on film. I will be setting up the new live trail camera that I purchased on David's property at the Killing Fields, and I will try to film as much of the journey as possible so you guys can get a better understanding of what our hopes and goals are with all of that. I would like to purchase a second camera here in the near future, so if you guys want to help out with that, you can donate to my Sasquatch Theory PayPal, and I would really appreciate any support that I can get. Alright guys, with all that being said, let's dive into our next Bigfoot report from the Fort Stewart area in the state of Georgia. All right, Gregory, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you so much for asking. Gregory, if you would, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and your encounters and experiences from the very beginning, please.
Okay, no problem. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, originally from New Jersey. So first incident, it's two different ones. One was vocal, one was visual. I've been driving, or I've been on this road probably hundreds of times. It's Fort Stewart. That is in Hinesville area, Hinesville, Georgia. One afternoon, I left, heading to my parents from Atlanta to Fort Stewart area, and it's probably 8 or 9 o'clock. I left Atlanta, so I would wind up in that area around 10:30, 11. So I was driving down on post, and I just happened to see something step out on the road. But let me give you a little bit of information. On that road, there's sometimes they have, I guess, training exercises. And every now and then you would see someone out with, the ghillie suit or something like that. But there's always been someone with a light, or it's always a sign saying, hey, training ahead. So, it was just one of these nights. There was nothing out there. And, cruising along, and I look up and there's something step out right at the edge of the road. And I look right at it, and it looked like a ghillie suit type. And when I looked up, I could see the face, and it was like if a guy has a ghillie suit on, he normally has his face blacked out or whatever. So it was similar to that, but it was something unusual about it because as I passed, I tapped the brake, and that area is so black, so dark with no lights on. And when I tapped the brake and I looked at my rear view mirror, it was gone. I'm literally just split second gone. And I didn't think about it. I went home, I went to my mom's house, and I didn't tell anybody for probably 10 years, man. And as I could remember looking at it, I was like, man, why would someone be out here at 11 o'clock at night in a ghillie suit with no sign, no indicating that there's, training going on. But I remember looking up at it, and I was like, man, it was huge. I'm 6'5", 230, and I would guess it was 7, 8 feet, maybe. It's hard to guess, man, because you would figure the biggest football player I've ever seen probably 340, 330. I would figure this thing had to be 500, 600 pounds easy, and I'm probably underestimating maybe 100 or so. So what made me judge it by the height was when I pulled up at my mom's house and I stepped out the car, my waist is probably a little higher than the hood of the car.
Hmm.
This thing w- waist was above the roof line, similar to the roof line. So when I put myself next to the vehicle, it's probably a foot and a half taller than I was compared to the car when I looked at it. And I was like, oh my gosh, after I sat in the house and I was like, you know what? I'm not sure what that was, but I know it wasn't a person because there's nobody that big. You would have to put Shaq in a suit and add some weight to him out in the woods at that time of the night. It's just not possible.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like a pretty big figure. And what month was this in?
It was right in it was October, uh, probably mid October, about like I said, it's 10 years ago, and it was unusual. So the color it was like a grayish color, and that's what threw me for a loop too. Because normally when you see the ghillie suits, there are a lot of they're green most of the time. So green with colors in it. That the ones I see on Fort Stewart. But this particular, it was a gray mix, like dark gray colors. It wasn't, and it wasn't like a. So the face looked like it had hair like around it. It wasn't. It was kind of strange. So it wasn't like huge. Maybe the hair was about 5 or 6 inches around the top of the head. The face was just plain skin, but black. Um, and it was just the thighs. You like the thigh muscles probably was as big around as my waist, like the thigh area. It was massive. Like the chest area, I would say, you know, 4 4 feet wide, maybe. Man, just huge, huge.
Yeah, it sounds like a massive creature. And
Yeah,
there's no way it could have been a person just because of the size. About how tall did you say it was?
I would say at least 7.5, 8 feet. I mean that, and again, I'm once I parked and I walked up to the vehicle on that side, and I just looked from where I was sitting in the waist side. Oh, it was a foot and a half taller than me, and I'm 6'5". Easy.
Yeah. And were you in the
Just
military at that time?
no, my family always lived down in that area, and we traveled up that road since I was probably 2, 3 years old. We used to travel from New Jersey to visit my grandparents, my grandma in that area. So I've been on that road, and I can probably say 150, 200 times, maybe more. And it was just I've never seen anything like that. Never, never.
Yeah, and it's a pretty forested area.
Oh yeah, I don't know how large that area is, but it is the largest base. I think it's one of the largest training bases. I think. Um, but you could drive. I think it's probably 30, 40 minutes drive down this one road, and there's nothing but forest, just nothing but trees. So there's no everything that branches off is dirt roads because that's where the tanks train at and things like that. The military is training. So it's from Fort Stewart, I guess, with Liberty County all the way out to Savannah. It touches out that far.
Yeah. And did the creature seem like it was in a hurry or did it just
No,
walk?
no. It just apparently maybe it was because there's a ditch, but it's not deep. And it seemed like it just stepped over because when it stepped over, it just stopped because I was kind of like coming and I just moved the car over a little bit because it was like, if it was a military person, they normally have a sign in their hand or something that, you know, but this one it just stepped out. And again, it was in motion to step further, I guess, to go across, but with me coming, it just hesitated. And again, as soon as I tapped the brake and I looked in the rearview mirror, it was gone. Nothing was there. I was like, okay.
So
And I
you
guess
slow
that's why
down.
yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
because I thought in my assuming if there was military training ahead, that maybe this was the first person that was saying, like, hey, slow down, we have, but I've been there and I've been up that road so many times that I knew that if somebody was there or something was going on, there's always a red light, a sign, or someone with a saying slow down, a cone. There was nothing. And then after that, there was nothing after that. So I knew there had to be something. And it was just strange, man. It caught me totally off guard. And I'm, I've always felt like there was, something out there like that, a Bigfoot or something, but it didn't dawn on me that I would see one, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And what's the terrain like there? Was it oak trees, pine trees?
It's all pine trees actually. And then there's heavy, and so they burn the, I guess what you call it, the underbrush from time to time. But this wasn't one of those times where it was cleared out. So it was thick, and it's pine trees literally up to maybe whatever the shoulder is, and a little bit past that, it's all pine trees. Even in the daytime, it's kind of hard to see through it if the underbrush hadn't been cut or burned at all.
Yeah, that makes sense. The Sasquatch like
Yeah.
to hang out in pines, and it could have been hunting that time of night or just moving
Yeah.
around.
Yeah, it's crazy because I think about it all the time. It become an obsession. Once you see one, it's just different. You know what I mean? And it's just one of those. You try to make sense of it, but it's hard to think. I'm as tall as I am. This thing is a foot and a half or two taller than I am. Two, maybe 300-400 pounds heavier than I am. And it's like, it's just amazing to see. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Most likely it was a lot taller than what you think, just because as a human, we don't really have a reference for something this large. And the Sasquatch I
Right.
seen around here, I was thinking, it was like 6 foot, maybe 6.5. But whenever I went up to the tree, and I was just kind of guessing about how tall it was, it seemed to be a lot taller once I walked up to that area.
Man. Yeah.
Hmm.
It still throws you for a loop, from time to time. Because I now I watch, I listen to your channel all the time, and then, it took me a while to write because there's a few people I have talked to about it, and everybody's like, yeah, you get the whole, you sure? Or you could just when to stop talking because they're not believing you. So
Hmm.
you just they just don't understand. It's just crazy because too, my son I was telling my son, which is he's 19, and I was like, hey man, and it took me a long time to say it. And I told him, and he just like walked off like, yeah, that's crazy. I was like, oh my goodness, that's why I didn't say it. That's why you don't say anything.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's a typical response. I remember
yeah,
seeing a Finding Bigfoot episode from Georgia, and it's like this police officer driving down the highway with some lady, and you can see this large black figure run across the
yeah,
highway. Have you ever seen
I
that?
remember that. Yeah,
Hmm.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
That's what made me first mention it was I was watching. I think it was Finding Bigfoot, and they were in the Fort Stewart area. I think they did an episode in that area. And as soon as I saw that, I was telling my wife, I said, listen, I said, I saw one. And I think at first, maybe she didn't believe me or just like, why didn't you tell me before? And I was like, it's just something you just don't blurt out. You know what I mean? You say, hey, I saw this thing that was 8 feet tall. It was midnight. It was covered with, you know, like mossy hair type. And someone's going to look at you like, this guy's crazy for real. So, but that was just the first incident the first one. But uh, the second one occurred probably 3 miles from that location. So my brother-in-law and I, we were headed to a fish creek. So you have to get a pass to go out there. So they open ponds like every now and then. Like, you can go to pond 6 at a certain time of the year, or pond whatever, 4. So we were walking down the dirt. We parked the vehicle out by the front near the road, probably just, I would say 50, 100 feet from the road, and we walked. So we were going down a dirt road, and we heard some hogs, or it's like out of the blue. We just heard some hogs grunting. So probably about 150 yards, I would say. All of a sudden, the hogs just bail across the dirt road. I mean, they were in full stride. It had to be about 20 or 30. And we stopped because it just startled us for a second. And we were like, what? And all of a sudden we heard this roar, or like a growl or guttural. It was incredible. Like you could feel it. It was like if somebody had a bass speaker and had it on, you could feel the vibration. I'm a nature guy. I listen, not going out like camping and all that, but I watch every National Geographic ever since I was little. I used to get all them National Geographic magazines. I used to watch everything that came on Saturday back then about nature or animals, and there was nothing I've never heard anything like this. And my brother-in-law, yeah, I'm gonna get him in trouble, but he's been in the military probably 23 years, 24 years, and he's been in that field or in that area training probably 5+ years in that area, particular area, just whether it was training for tanks or whatever. And he looked at me, I looked at him, and we were like, what? I was like, it's time to go. And we just hauled out of there. It was incredible. It was one of those, I can't explain. It had to come from something large, not a mountain lion, not a bear, nothing. Nothing could make that. And we looked around and we didn't see anything, but we figured, okay, if the hogs are running, that thing is growling, something is going on. So we figured that later on, I figured maybe we interrupted a hunt or something. And it just let us know that, hey, you guys need to go. And we just made it out of there.
Yeah, that is terrifying. What
Yeah.
could you compare the growl to? Like any known creature? Would it be like a lion from Africa, or was it more of a scream? Like a grizzly bear? What would you say?
No, not even close to. I would say maybe a lion on steroids or something. I mean, it was more. It wasn't just a roar. I would say it was more of a guttural type. Like when you hear people make this screams of, like, yeah, I would say like a screaming person, but a roar at the same time, like a roaring noise. It was just. It's hard to put it into what exactly it was. You know, it was just loud. It was strong. It was a lot of bass to it, because whatever it was, we didn't see it, but you can feel it. Like you knew it. Like this is not normal, you know. And then on my way out, my thought was, "Oh shit!" It was that thing, because it's literally in the same area. I would say the 3 to 5 mile area where we were in. We were in that area where I first saw the first one. But to hear this one and wind up in the same area, being in the same area, it just had me. It just had me shook.
Yeah, so you said this is 3 miles away from where you saw the figure.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. And
Correct.
what time of year was the growl?
Um, it was summertime, so I would probably. Oh man, you know what? I don't remember exactly. I mean, my brother-in-law and I talk about it occasionally, and I would have to ask him, man. But it was summer. Because we had t-shirts on. Uh, I wasn't sure if we had shorts, so it had to be midsummer. It just it just blew me away. Like to hear something that loud. I race cars for a living, and you get the same effect as you do from a loud race car. It had that type of feel to it.
Yeah, and do you think they were letting you guys know to stay out of the area, or was it just part of
That's
the
what I,
hunt?
that's what we felt at first, because I think what happened when the hogs just took off. Maybe we may have startled them, and he may have, or whatever was there. And once they took off, then maybe he was angry at us for messing it up or whatever. I can't imagine. any other reason, because again, we didn't hear, it wasn't like if he or they captured one and you could hear them over there squealing. They all just took off at one time. And it was a shock because we just froze for a second. It was like, oh, and you see him running, and then you get this right behind it, this growl, this roar, this scream, everything combined. And it was almost, terrifying. But again, I think my brother-in-law is, like I said, he's been in those woods at all time. He grew up in the South. I grew up in North. So for me, it was a little worse. For him, he was a little more calm than I was, but I was like, yo, let's go. And we just made our way out of there.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I looked up Bigfoot reports near Fort Stewart, and it seems like there's
Yeah.
a lot of sightings and experiences from that area, and especially from soldiers training on the base.
Yeah, and that's what I also did some research. And I remember a gentleman in a tank with his night vision on said one walked across the trail, the path, and he could see it maybe 50, 75 yards ahead. And he, I guess, knowing by sight on the gun, I guess whatever he's using, was figuring 8 feet tall, somewhere in there, 7, 8 feet tall, which is probably similar to what I saw.
Yeah, I wonder how many soldiers training on the base see this figure and think it's possibly another soldier training in a ghillie suit, and they don't know what to
Yeah,
make of it. I've heard that myself several times from others.
true. And that's what I'm thinking too. Like, so if you're out in training and, 10 guys are in suits and you happen to see one that just happened to be an area you guys in, I'm like you probably an assumption that, hey, that's one of the other guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
have you went back to investigate these areas?
I recently, probably in the last 6 months, I was telling my wife, I said, I do want to go back because I just have this thing. Like, I feel like I'm not sure if I want to see it again. I think just going back and maybe walking the woods and then coming out, I'll feel better about it. And she's like, I'll go with you. And I'm like, nah, I don't think that's a good idea. So, but yeah, I think my brother-in-law and I are gonna do that just to get past what we heard and what we feel about that area at that time. It bothers me all the time that maybe I should have waited or stayed to see what it was, or like I should have turned around to see what the original, the first sighting was, and I just didn't do it because I guess at that time I didn't think of it being a Bigfoot at the time.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea to go back and see if you guys can find anything, possibly structures, some prints, or
Yeah,
where these things are at. But I mean, it's a really large area. The military base here, there's an army base where I'm researching at, and there's just a ton of national forest around there. And I think a lot of people would assume, they're breeding these things in the bases and letting them out. But it's really hard to say just because where these bases are built is in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by a bunch of woods.
yeah, yeah. This one is, and you would because of the population of hogs and deer and fruit, and I mean you could walk through that area and you could find berries, you could see deer, there's lakes everywhere. I think it would sustain something that large and not be noticed. No one could, because the area is just massive.
Yeah, I agree. Are there any rumors of underground bases in that area?
I haven't researched anything other than just the Bigfoot sightings on there. But no one's really particular saying that, this is, I think this is what's going on. And I never, I think, my brother-in-law, we're so close that if there was something I would know or I would have been told,
Yeah,
about,
you would think.
hey, there's something going on. Yeah, I mean, we're tight.
Hmm. And it seems like there's some BFRO Class A reports. There was one posted up in 2006. It's a Class A sighting off of Highway 119 and then 144 and I-95. But I guess it's a
Mm,
swampy area, and somebody's seen one in there by Fort Stewart.
yeah. 119 is the highway that I saw it on because that's the highway in and out.
Really?
Yeah. That thing, this Fort Stewart is 280,000 acres.
Okay, so you'd be looking for a long time to
Yeah.
eventually find something.
Yeah, like I said, if you're coming down from Atlanta and you get to the area where you can come in to Fort Stewart, if you drive down, continue to Savannah area, it would be another hour and a half, maybe hour driving somewhere in there. You're still riding in the area that will still be considered Fort Stewart off of if you drive the distance, when you get to Savannah and you come back, that is that far out. It's
Okay.
massive. It's large.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds massive. And let's see, what do you think the Sasquatch are? What's your opinion on where they came from, their origins?
You know, it's man, there's so many. And my thought is just, I don't know. You try to put things in perspective as what is that large? Then you start reading about there were giants, and then you read about there could have been, you know, a different branch of human, uh, but they have to be intelligent to be this elusive. It's not like it. Over time, just like any animal, like a deer, I'm assuming I don't hunt, but I'm assuming like, people go, oh, I was chasing this buck for 3, 4 years. If you're in one particular area over time, you probably will see, eventually it's like a regular occurrence, like running into that big buck, but he will know that you there and not come out. I'm just thinking it's just I don't know. It's a form of human somehow, you know?
Yeah, I would agree. There's all kinds of different primates that have been found throughout the years, and
Yeah.
evidence of different primates, hominids that used to live on the planet. And I think they are a different branch of humans that
Yeah.
evolved in a different way, and they're intelligent in their own unique way.
Yeah, because if you look back at some of the Indians, I guess some of their writings, and a little bit further back, there's always been a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot or whatever they call them. So it's not like they've been around. So the evolution from how far back, you know?
Yeah. I often wonder, like, at these military bases, if there's like a certain battalion that they train and they say, okay, today's mission, you guys are going to go and find a Sasquatch. If you can find one, you can pass the class and
Right.
move on. Yeah. It's
I
hard
would
to
think
say.
if you could find tracks or anything, yeah, there would be something, that you can, say, hey, we found these prints or whatever. So it could be things because I was reading or listening to one of the other channels, and some guys were talking about or saying that there was groups that would go out and take out rogue Bigfoots just to keep them in check or whatever. I'm not sure you know, how that goes, but I would think that there's got to be some good and bad who take care of the bad ones or they take care of themselves. You never know.
Yeah, very possible. I've heard the same, that there's like a kill squad for the cryptid creatures, and Fort Stewart would be the perfect place to train for that, just because of all the forest around there and the
Yeah,
Sasquatch that are seen in the area.
yeah. I was just recently there. Um, Probably about 3, 4 weeks ago. I went on one of the lakes with my brother fishing, and I think I was looking in the woods more than I was fishing. We weren't in that particular area. We were in uh, I think what they call that thing. It's a river that runs through in that area. We started in another location and we, went through. And even when we weren't on Fort Stewart, I was still looking in the woods. We were talking, but I didn't tell him. But I was just looking. I was like, man, there's got to be one out here, so I can say, hey, look right there. Let's stop. You know what I mean? it's kind of it consumes you because when I'm driving, I look at every square inch of the forest if I could see to see if I see something walking or something. And I was like, man, this is like every night I go to sleep listening to your the channel or someone's channel or doing some research. And but I'm not the guy that I want to go, hey, I'm gonna just start looking for, a Bigfoot. But it's just nice to know, nice to hear other people have encountered the same thing, and when I hear people go, oh, I didn't tell anybody for 10 years or 20 years, I know why, because when I said something, it was one of those, okay. It's like, man, I should have said, kept that to myself.
Yeah. So after you had this encounter, how often do you think about what you seen?
Well, for a while, and it still is kind of every day. It's one of those things where it, it doesn't consume me during the day, but any downtime, I listen to. Like if I'm riding home from work, I listen to it. If I'm home in the evening, right before I go to bed, I may look through a channel or listen to something, and then I'll doze off. But it's always all the time recently. For whatever reason, I have the slightest idea. But the first few times the first encounter was kind of, the first encounter was one of those, I'm not sure what I saw. So it didn't consume me as much. But after I heard that Bigfoot, then it was the problem. I call it the problem, where it's just like, I gotta know. I want to hear. Like I could hear when someone say, "Hey, it growled like this." I'd be like, "Yeah, that's it. That's what it sounds like."
Yeah. And have you ever found a vocalization online that is similar to what you heard?
I did. I think there was. Uh, I can't remember what episode it was on your. One of the guys was hunting, and he vocalized what like it sounded like, and he was pretty much spot on because he said he could feel it also. And one of the guys said they could feel like the wind, like the you could. I didn't feel that, but you could feel. I'm not saying your clothing move or anything, but you could, like if you hear a car stereo somewhere, you can feel. I don't know how to put it, but you can feel it. That's how it was. It was instant. Like it was long. It wasn't like a short, and I don't think human has that unless you're an athlete or a singer or something that has the vocals like that. But you couldn't make a vocal that like that, and it was just a long 5-10 seconds, just straight get out. That's what it sounds like get out, but
Hmm.
in that tone.
Yeah, you could feel the vibration.
Yeah, yeah,
Have
it
you
was insane.
have you spoken with anyone in the area that's had an encounter and an experience?
No, I me- I mentioned it to my other brother, and he was like, I mean, it wasn't like he did not, like, nah. He was like, probably so. It was just one. It wasn't like he was brushing me off, but it was like, it's probably something out there. And sometimes when not to say anything. So I live probably 4 hours from there, but I think if I was closer, I would probably be out there a little bit, just out, just not like saying I'm everyday search, but I would probably, every now and then, every couple months, just go out there or something.
Yeah. And have you had any paranormal experiences in your life? Any UFOs, anything like that?
Yeah, strange that you asked. When I was younger, my parents, we were leaving actually Savannah and Fort Stewart, Hinesville area, and I'm not sure what area. I was young, probably 6, 7 or something, if that. And we were riding in my dad's car, and my sister pointed up, and there was a white light UFO type just gliding down the side of the highway. Like you can look it's over the trees, but you could see it going probably. It was as fast as we were going, and then it just veered off and went off like a hard left and just went off from the road. And we were all laying down in the car, It was my three siblings. And once we spotted it, we just like crouched down in the car. You're looking at it, but you're crouched because you're nervous and scared. And then it just takes off, goes away. And that was the first time, and I ever had anything like that happen.
Yeah, that is interesting. I noticed outside of the fort, there's a bunch of cemeteries like Green Bay Cemetery, Briggs Cemetery, Y Cemetery. I wonder why there's so many cemeteries there. Are they associated with the base?
I'm not 100% sure because even though my parents live there, I was just in and out visiting because I always lived somewhere else. And I never had a chance to really, go through what's going on at the base like that. But sometime if you're walking through, like you go into certain fish spots or you're driving, because sometimes you have to drive a couple miles down the road and then go off the dirt road and you can look off and see cemeteries out there. But, at this point, I never thought of, you don't think about it. You just look at it and you go, maybe it was some land that they acquired and the cemetery was on it, so they just left it. No, no, for me, it was never a second thought of, you know, why would it be a cemetery out here? I don't know why it never dawned on me.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. And do you think that you'll have another encounter again?
Just like everybody else who's seen him the first time, you want to, because you wanna take it in more than you did the first time, right? You feel like, okay, I'm not I want to pull my camera out, or if not, I just want to observe to get a little more details to, you know, see what I just justify what I saw the first time and be like, oh, yeah, it is. You know what I mean? Because when you see the first one, it just leave you with the just like what could I have done to visualize more, spend more time looking at it or listen to it, or instead of the instance of, oh, I gotta get out of here. You know what I mean? Because you don't know whether the one that you see is the one that will be a problem. You know, because there's so many people who say, hey, it just stood up, looked at me 15, 20 seconds or whatever, and it just walked off. I'm good with that. But then, there's people like, hey, it was beating on the door, it was throwing dogs, like, okay, I don't want to run to that guy. You know what I mean? Because you figure, like I said, I'm 6'5", 220-ish, and this thing was towering, massive. You know, there's nothing, I don't think there's anything to stop that as an human to animal fight, or I don't even know if a gun, if you would have to have a big gun because this thing was massive.
Yeah. Could you see any eye shine?
No, no, that's a strange thing too. When I started thinking about before I mentioned it, or when I reached out to you, was I wanted to think about everything that I could see and remember. And, like I said, just stepping out on the highway, it was just it just showed up like bam, I'm step towards the highway. And I think if I was maybe a little bit further back, it might have crossed, or if I was past it, it may have crossed behind me. Um, but I can remember the face being black, like just again, I'm just thinking the ghillie suit. And then when you look at the gray, it, at night it just seemed like it was gray mixed with black gray type. And it the hands were, because it wasn't swinging or anything. When it stepped out, it kind of stopped. So the hands were down, and it didn't turn to look at the car. Now that I think about it, it never turned to look when I was driving by. It was almost like it just went into a freeze of, I'm frozen. They don't see me. Let them go by, and I'm gonna keep going where I'm going. That type of look, because when I looked at the face, it wasn't like he was looking down, or it just seemed like it wasn't, like I wasn't there almost. But
Yeah.
the hands were probably knee. knees, like down by the knee, that long, but they had a little bend to them. Um, no eye shine. Um, it was just the okay. When I passed, you could see the shoulders and it was like, when people explain a bodybuilder, the waist, like the waist come down and then it went out. Like the legs were massive. Like it's hard to explain what the legs like a tree trunk. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Just
pretty
huge.
big. I would think it
Yeah,
was probably hunting or just traveling through the area.
yeah, yeah. And that location, like, you know, when it's deer season, I think they find Fort Stewart because they know it's a hiding place. That's what I always think, because you always see them upside the road. You can hear all the hunting and everything going on in different areas, but the deer is always on the base. And there's plenty of deer. Like you can ride down there at 10, 9 o'clock in the evening, and you might see 20 or more deer just lined up on your way out of there. So they're always there, and there's always hogs, there's always turkeys, there's everything out there, man. It's just literally like anything turkeys, hogs, deer, the rivers for for fish, for water, anything I think would be a great area to sustain anything that big.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. There seems to be a large amount of food out there, cover, and they have everything they need to survive, especially with all the waterways in the area.
Yeah, it's unusual. Like when you're out there, it's peaceful. It was, I mean, I don't think I can be at ease again, like I said, when we went to the fish creek, we were fishing, but we at that time we was at the river, so it don't put you on the base, it's just near the base. But I couldn't relax because I'm looking more than I am fishing, you know?
Yeah. So after the encounter, you're always looking around,
Yeah,
watching your back.
everywhere. And even where I live now, my home is backed up to a few acres of wooded area. So it's times where I'll just walk, and I can go probably a half a mile, and I'll just look. I don't know what I'm looking for, but I just walk and look, and I always look out my backyard. Like this is normal for me right now. I would just get up in the morning and I would just look out the back, and it's just nothing but woods. But it's like, okay, what am I just thinking? Well, it's just gonna pop up like, hey, I know you've been looking for me, you know.
Yeah, it's the same way with me. After I had my encounters, anywhere I go, I'm constantly looking around, thinking maybe I'll see another one, but it doesn't
Yeah,
happen anymore. But I do find things from time to time as far as like structures and little oddities.
yeah. And so, my intentions are, eventually I'm gonna go back before this year's out, and I'm gonna take some pictures and you know see if I see anything just for one time. I don't think I need to do it every time I go, but just to get by and say, hey, give you a call or email and say, hey, what do you think about this structure or these pictures or something. But at this point, they may hear this and say, hey, don't you come back on Fort Stewart again.
Yeah, yeah, I think that would be a good idea. And yeah, I think that pretty well answers most of my questions. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, man, that's about it right now.
Okay. Well, Gregory, I appreciate you for getting in contact with me and sharing your Bigfoot encounter with all of us here on the channel. And
Thank you.
yeah, it's no problem. And if you see anything else, feel free to reach back out to me, and I'd be glad to have you back on.
I definitely will. You'll be the first, I tell you. I appreciate everything.
Yeah, thank you, and
Uh,
I appreciate your kindness, sir.
no problem, man. You have a good day.
Yeah, you too. I'll talk to you
All
later.
right. All right. Bye.
Bye. All right, Gregory, I really appreciate you for being a guest on the channel and openly sharing your encounters and experiences with me. I do hear a lot of reports from people where they mention that Bigfoot looked like it was wearing a ghillie suit. Some people even go as far as saying that the hair looked kind of green, and maybe that's a way that they're able to camouflage. It makes sense though that Bigfoot would look like a man in a ghillie suit just because that's some of the best camouflage on the world. When people wear ghillie suits, they really disappear and blend into the environment. There are videos from the military where there's people wearing ghillie suits on film and you just can't see them until they move or raise up their hand. So that really goes to show how well the camouflage really works. I have also heard numerous reports where Sasquatch are hanging out in national forests or state parks near ponds, rivers, and creeks. They need to be next to water, and food, water, and cover is essential for survival. I could really tell that Gregory was being very genuine and honest, and whenever I asked him if he wanted to tell his encounter here on the channel, he didn't hesitate. He was more than willing to talk about his experience, and to me, that shows honesty. I can't tell you guys how many people contact me behind the scenes saying they had an experience or an encounter, and they don't really want to talk about it. It ends up turning into like this texting thing where they want to talk to me all day long and pick my brain about things, but they don't want to share their encounter. And I'm not going to say they're lying, but I think a lot of people are lonely. They just want somebody to talk to about this, and they're not interested in actually telling their report. And that's the whole reason of contacting me. I'm Sasquatch Theory, and I share Bigfoot reports. Well, I really appreciate all the listeners and everyone who supports the channel. Thank you everyone for watching. Be safe and take care.